The arrow whistled past Corvain's ear, embedding itself in the oak behind him with a violent thud. He didn't flinch. Instead, he turned slowly, his steel-gray eyes meeting those of the Apache warrior who'd just tried to kill him. "You missed," he said calmly, his weathered hands still raised in the universal gesture of peace. Ayanna Stormfeather lowered her bow, her dark eyes blazing with fury. For 10 years, no man had set foot in their sacred valley without losing his life. 10 years since the great sickness had taken every male in their tribe, leaving only the women and children to survive against impossible odds. And now this stranger, this white man with scars covering his arms, and a voice that carried no fear, stood before their council fire as if he belonged there. "You speak our tongue," Chief Itzel observed, her gray-streaked hair catching the firelight. She was the oldest among them, the one who remembered the time before the curse fell upon their people. Corvain nodded. "My mother was Chiricahua. She taught me before the soldiers came." The circle of women warriors shifted restlessly. They'd heard such claims before. But something about this man was different. He bore the ritual scars of their enemies on his chest, proof he'd survived capture. His hands showed the calluses of honest work, not the soft palms of a coward who'd never known hardship. "Why have you come?" Ayanna demanded, though her voice held less venom now. She'd been barely 16 when the plague struck, had grown in two. Womanhood knowing only the company of women and the endless responsibility of protecting their dying bloodline. Corvain's gaze found hers and held it. "I heard tell of a tribe of warrior women who needed no man's protection. I came to see if the stories were true." A bitter laugh escaped Ayanna's lips. "And what did you find, white man?" "I found women stronger than any army I've ever seen," he replied without hesitation. "And I found a people dying because they're too proud to ask for help." The words hit like physical blows. Several warriors reached for their weapons, but Chief Itzel raised her hand. "Speak plainly," she commanded. Corvain gestured toward the village beyond the council fire. "Your numbers dwindle each season. Children grow without fathers to teach them the warrior's way. The old women work themselves to death trying to fill roles meant for strong backs and willing hearts. You've survived 10 years through sheer will, but survival isn't the same as living, and you think you're our salvation." Ayanna spat, stepping closer. She was tall for a woman, her movements fluid as a mountain cat. War paint streaked her cheeks, and feathers adorned her long black hair. "I think I'm just a man who's tired of running from his past," Corvain said quietly. "I've got nothing left to lose, and no place left to go. If you'll have me, I'll earn my place among you. If not, I'll die trying." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackling of flames and the distant cry of a night bird. Chief Itzel studied the stranger with eyes that had seen too much sorrow. "Very well," she said finally.
"How?"
"You will face the 7 trials. Of the true heart, if you survive them all, we will consider your petition. If you fail..." She didn't need to finish the threat. Corvain smiled for the first time since entering their territory. "When do we begin?" Dawn came with the war cry of eagles, and Corvain woke to find his hands bound with sacred rope. Ayanna stood over him, her expression unreadable in the morning light. "The first trial begins now," she announced. "You will hunt the ghost bear of Thunder Canyon with nothing but a bone knife in your wits." The ghost bear was legendary even among the Apache. A creature of shadow and fury, it had killed 3 of their finest hunters over the years. Its hide was said to be impenetrable, its claws sharper than any blade. "And if I refuse?" Corvain asked, testing the bonds around his wrists. "Then you die here and we throw your body to the vultures." Ayanna cut his ropes with a swift motion. "The choice is yours." Corvain flexed his fingers, working feeling back into them, round the camp. Women and children watched in silence. Some faces showed hope, others skepticism. A few displayed outright hostility. "The knife," he said simply. Ayanna handed him a blade carved from elk antler, its edge honed to razor sharpness. It was beautiful work, but pitifully small against a creature that stood 7 feet at the shoulder. "One more thing," she said as he prepared to leave. "You have until sunset. If you're not back by then, we assume you're dead." Thunder Canyon lay 5 miles north through terrain that would challenge a mountain goat. Corvain set off at a steady pace, his mind already working through possibilities. He'd hunted bear before, but never with such primitive weapons. The key would be understanding his prey. The ghost bear's tracks told a story written in claw marks. In crushed undergrowth, the creature was old, its left rear paw showing signs of an ancient injury that forced it to favor one side. Old meant experienced, but also potentially slower. The injury might be exploited as the sun reached its zenith. Corvain found what he'd been looking for, a narrow defile where the canyon walls pressed close together. The bear would have to squeeze through sideways, exposing its vulnerable flank. But first, he needed bait. His own blood would have to do. Corvain sliced his palm with the bone knife, letting crimson drops spatter the rock. The scent would carry on the wind, drawing the beast to him. He didn't wait long. The ghost bear emerged from the shadows, like a living nightmare. Its black fur, seeming to absorb light, red eyes fixed on Corvain with intelligence and malice. This was no ordinary animal. It was a predator that had learned to hate men. The bear charged with surprising speed, but the narrow passage slowed it just enough. Corvain threw himself sideways, the bone knife seeking the junction between neck and shoulder. The blade sank deep, but not deep enough. The bear's massive paw swept around, catching him across the ribs and sending him crashing into the canyon wall. Blood filled his mouth, but he rolled away as claws raked the stone, where his head had been. The ghost bear roared its fury, its sound echoing off the canyon walls like thunder. For the next hour, they danced a deadly ballet among the rocks. Corvain's smaller size and superior agility kept him alive, but barely. The bear's wounded shoulder slowed it, but its rage seemed to make it stronger. Each near miss brought him closer to death. Finally, as shadows lengthened toward evening, opportunity came. The ghost bear reared up on its hind legs, preparing to bring its full weight down on its tormentor. In that moment, its throat lay exposed. Corvain gathered his remaining strength and leaped upward, driving the bone knife deep into the soft flesh beneath the creature's jaw. The ghost bear's roar became a gurgle, then silence. It toppled backward, carrying Corvain down with it in a crushing embrace. For a moment, he thought he'd die pinned beneath his kill. Then the great body went limp, and he crawled free. The sun was touching the horizon when Corvain limped back into camp. The ghost bear's massive head slung across his shoulders. The entire tribe had gathered to witness his return. His failure to return. Iana's eyes widened as she saw what he carried. No man had ever killed the ghost bear. No man had even tried and lived to tell of it. The first trial is complete, Chief Itzel declared, her voice carrying newfound respect. But 6 remain. Corvain nodded, swaying on his feet from exhaustion. And blood loss? I'll be ready. But as he collapsed beside the council fire, he wondered if any man could be ready for what these warrior women might demand of him next. The second trial came at midnight, under a moonless sky. Corvain woke to find himself bound again, this time with chains instead of rope. Iana's face was painted with white clay in the pattern of death. Tonight you walk the spirit path, she intoned. In our sacred caves, the ghosts of our fallen. Warriors await. You must face them without weapons, without light, and without fear. If your heart is pure, they will grant you passage. If not, ... She didn't need to finish. The bones scattered around the cave entrance told their own story. The spirit caves extended deep into the mountain, a labyrinth of passages where sound and sense meant nothing. Corvain had been in caves before, but never like this. Here, the darkness was absolute, pressing against his eyes like a physical weight. Within the first 100 steps, the whispers began. Voices speaking in the old tongue, words of accusation and challenge. They spoke of broken promises, of wars that should never have been fought, of children left fatherless by the ambitions of men. You carry the blood of those who destroyed us. A voice hissed from the shadows. Why should we trust you now? Corvain stopped walking. In the absolute darkness, Honesty was his only compass. "Because I carry their sins too," he said aloud. "I've seen what hate can do, what pride can cost. I'm not here to repeat the mistakes of the past." The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Phantom hands seemed to clutch at his clothes, his hair. Cold breath touched the back of his neck. "Prove it," the voices demanded in unison. "Show us your true heart." What followed was not a test of courage, but of truth. The spirits forced him to relive every moment of shame from his past, the army patrol he'd led into an Apache ambush, knowing some wouldn't return, the village he'd helped burn, following orders he knew were wrong, the woman he'd loved and left because staying would have meant choosing between love and duty. Each memory cut deeper than any blade. But with each confession, each admission of guilt and regret, the whispers grew quieter. The phantom touches became gentler. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes' time had no meaning in the spirit caves. Finally, Corvain emerged into starlight, his face streaked with tears he didn't remember shedding. The tribe waited for him in a circle of torches. Ayanna stepped forward, her painted face expectant. "What did the spirits show you?" she asked. "The truth," Corvain replied simply.
"That I'm
"Not the man I used to be, but I might become the man you need me to be." Chief Eitzel nodded slowly. "The spirits have accepted you. But 5 trials remain." The third trial came with the dawn, a test of skill rather than courage. Orvin was presented with a broken bow. Its string snapped, its wood cracked along the grain. "Our children need to hunt," Ayanna explained. "But our weapons fail us one by one. Can you make this bow sing again?" Corvain examined the weapon carefully. It was Apache craftsmanship at its finest, but years of use in the harsh mountain. Climate had taken their toll. The wood needed reinforcement, the string replacement, the balance restoration. "I'll need sinew, pine pitch, and 3 days," he said. "You have until sunset," Ayanna countered. "Our children eat today, or not at all." The impossible deadline forced. Innovation. Corvain worked with desperate precision, using techniques learned from a dozen different tribes during his wandering years. He wrapped the cracked wood with fresh sinew, binding it tight while the fibers were still wet. Pine pitch sealed the joints, while careful shaving restored the bow's balance. The new string was the greatest challenge. Without time to properly cure sinew, he had to improvise. Horsehair from his own mount, braided with plant fibers and blessed with sacred smoke, would have to suffice. As the sun touched the western peaks, Corvain strung the bow for the first time, bent like a living thing, taut and eager. He drew it to full extension, feeling the perfect tension, the harmonious flecks of wood and sinew working together. "The test isn't complete until you use it," Ayanna pointed out. A hawk circled high above, riding the evening thermals. Corvain knocked an arrow, drew, and released in one smooth motion. The shaft flew true, taking the bird cleanly through the heart. It fell like a stone into his waiting hands. The tribe erupted in cheers. Even Ayanna smiled, though she tried to hide it. 3 trials completed, Chief Eitzel announced. 4 remain. But as Corvain accepted their praise, he noticed several women exchanging worried glances. These had been tests of courage, spirit, and skill. What came next would likely be far worse. That night, as he tended his wounds by the fire, Ayanna approached him alone. "Why do you really want to stay?" she asked quietly. Corvain looked up at her, this fierce warrior woman who could drop a charging buffalo with a single arrow. "'Cause for the first time in 10 years, I don't feel like I'm running toward something. I feel like I'm running toward something." "And what is that something?" He met her eyes, seeing his own loneliness reflected their home. The 4th trial began before sunrise, when Ayanna shook Corvain awake with unusual urgency. "The children are sick," she said tersely. "All of them. Started during the night fever, convulsions, skin turning blue. Our medicine woman is dead these 3 years past. If you claim to care for our people, prove it." Corvain's blood ran cold. He'd seen this before, in frontier towns where contaminated water claimed lives faster than bullets. Racing to the children's lodge, he found a scene of controlled chaos. Mothers held delirious infants while older children thrashed in feverish dreams. The symptoms were unmistakable poison in the water supply. When did they last drink from the mainspring? he demanded. Yesterday evening, replied Namora, a young mother clutching her convulsing son. Same as always. Corvain knelt beside the nearest child, a girl of perhaps 8 summers. Her lips were tinged blue, her breathing shallow and rapid. Without immediate action, she'd be dead within hours. They all would. I need charcoal-burned wood, ground to powder, clay from the riverbank. Someone needs to find the source of the poisoning. Ayana nodded grimly. I'll take warriors to check the spring. What can we do here? Pray I remember everything my mother taught me. For the next 6 hours, Corvain worked like a man possessed. The charcoal mixture would absorb the poison if given quickly enough, but the children were already deep in the grip of toxicity. He needed something stronger, drawing on half-remembered Apache healing songs. He prepared a purging tea from plants his mother had shown him as a child. Willow barked for fever, sage for purification, and a dangerous amount of bitter root that would either save them or kill them faster. One by one, he forced the mixture down unwilling throats, holding each child as they retched and fought. Some parents wept, certain he was torturing their young ones. Others watched with desperate hope. The spring is fouled, Ayana reported upon returning. Someone dumped something upstream, deliberate poisoning. We found horse tracks leading away. Soldiers, Corvain asked, not looking up from the child he was tending. Or settlers who want our land. Does it matter now? It mattered more than she knew, but Corvain forced himself to focus on the immediate crisis. By midday, the smallest children began to show improvement. Color returned to their lips. Breathing became less labored. But 3 of the older ones, those who drunk more of the contaminated water, remained in mortal danger. The sun was setting when young Takeshi, a boy of 12 who'd been closest to death, suddenly opened his eyes and asked for water, clean water from the backup springs deeper in the canyon. Within an hour, all the children were conscious and calling for their mothers. How did you know? What to do? Ayana asked, as they watched the children take their first solid food in 24 hours. My mother's people used similar remedies, Corvain replied, exhaustion making his words slur slightly. And I've seen poison used against Indians before. Figured the cure would be the same. The admission hung between them like smoke from a dying fire. Ayana's expression hardened. You were a soldier. It wasn't a question. Corvain nodded wearily. Cavalry, for 8 years, till I couldn't stomach it anymore. How many of us did you kill? The question he'd been dreading. 17 that I know of. Maybe more in the big battles where everything was confusion and gunsmoke. Ayana's hand moved instinctively to her knife. Several other women, overhearing, began to close in with murder. In their eyes. I won't defend what I did, Corvain continued quietly. But I will tell you why I stopped. I had a Comanche friend fellow scout named Running Wolf. Good man, better tracker than me. One day we came across a burned-out homestead, whole family butchered. Command blamed Indians, ordered us to find the responsible tribe and make them pay. The circle of angry women pressed closer, but Corvain didn't flinch. Running Wolf found tracks showing it was white men claim jumpers who wanted the land. But the colonel didn't want to hear it. Ordered us to attack a peaceful Kiowa camp anyway, said it would send a message. When I refused, they branded me a deserter. When Running Wolf backed me up, they shot him in the back and said he was resisting arrest. Chief Itzel pushed through the crowd, her weathered face thoughtful. And then I took my rifle and walked away. Been walking ever since, trying to figure out how to balance the scales. Today I helped save 17 young lives. Maybe that pays for 17 I took. Maybe it doesn't, but it's a start. The tension stretched taut as a bowstring. One word from Ayana, and the other women would tear him apart. Instead, she turned to address the gathering. This man saved our children when our own knowledge failed us. Could have let them die and used their deaths as an excuse to leave. Instead, he fought for them as fiercely as any father would fight. For his own blood. She faced Corvain again. The 4th trial is complete. You've proven you value Apache lives above your own comfort. Relief flooded through him, but Chief Itzel's next words brought fresh dread. 3 trials remain, and they will be the hardest yet. The fifth trial came with a complication. Corvain hadn't expected competition. He woke to find another man in the camp, a tall Apache warrior named Joaquin, who'd apparently arrived during the night. "My cousin returns to us," Ayana said, though her voice carried no warmth. Joaquin was hunting in the southern territories when the sickness came. He'd been searching for surviving members of our people ever since. Joaquin was everything Corvain wasn't: young, handsome, and undeniably Apache. His muscled frame bore traditional tattoos, and he moved with the fluid grace of a born warrior. Worse, the way several unmarried women looked at him suggested he'd been more than welcome in the past. "So this is the white man who thinks he can replace our fallen brothers," Joaquin said, his English accented but clear. "I've heard about your trials. Impressive. But can you lead warriors into battle when the time comes?" "That depends," Corvain replied evenly. "Are you planning to start a war?" "War has already started," Joaquin spat. "The same dogs who poisoned. Our spring burned out 3 Apache families to the south.
Ow.
They're coming for our land, and they won't stop until we're all dead or driven off. The question is whether we fight like cornered animals or strike back like the warriors we are." Chief Itzel raised her hand for silence. "The fifth trial will settle this debate. Both men will lead scouting parties to gather information about our enemies. The one who brings back the most valuable intelligence will prove himself the better leader." Corvain felt his heart sink. This wasn't about proving his worth anymore. It was about choosing sides in an ancient conflict he'd spent years trying to escape. AI YNA approached him as the War Council broke up. "You can withdraw from the trials," she said quietly. "No one would blame you. Would you blame me?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Part of me hopes you'll choose to stay and fight. Another part hopes you're wise enough to run." "Which part is stronger?" "It's the part that's falling in love with a man I barely know," she admitted, the words coming out like a physical pain. Corvain felt his world tilt on its axis. "Ayana, don't say anything now. Win the trial first. Then, we'll see if there's anything left to talk about." The scouting expedition began at dawn. Joaquin took 6 warriors south toward the burned homesteads, while Corvain headed north with 3 volunteers, all of them women who'd insisted on coming despite his protests. "You'll need our knowledge of the land," explained Nayeli, a middle-aged woman whose husband had been the tribe's war chief before the plague. "And if you're planning to avoid a fight, you'll need witnesses who can speak for your courage." The wisdom of her words became clear as they moved through terrain Corvain had never seen. His companions knew every game trail, every water source, every place where enemies might lay in ambush. More importantly, they knew how to read the land for signs of recent passage. What they found was worse than Corvain had feared.
Nice.
Hadn't been random settlers, they were part of a larger force. Maybe 30 men strong, moving systematically through Apache territory. Professional soldiers, not farmers playing at war. Cavalry patrol, Nayeli confirmed, examining boot prints near a hidden camp, but not regular army. Look at the gear they left behind. Corvain studied the abandoned supplies, quality weapons, good horses, expensive equipment. Mercenaries, he concluded. Someone with money hired them to clear out the Indians. "The question is who," said Imala, the youngest of his scouts. "And how do we stop them?" Following the mercenaries' trail led them to an overlook above Copper Creek, where Corvain got his answer. Below them, a camp of military tents surrounded a command post flying no recognized flag. But the man giving orders wore a uniformed. Corvain recognized Colonel Marcus Hawthorne, his former commanding officer, and the man who'd had Running Wolf murdered. "We need to get back," he told his scouts. "The tribe needs to know what we're facing." But as they prepared to withdraw, Joaquin's war party came thundering up the valley below, right into the mercenaries' guns. Outnumbered 5-1, they were slaughtered in minutes. Only Joaquin escaped, badly wounded and riding hard for home. "We have to help him," Imala whispered. Corvain was already moving. "Nayeli, get back to the village. Tell them what we've seen, Imala. You're with me." What followed was a running battle through canyon country, with Corvain and Imala trying to keep the pursuing mercenaries away from the wounded Joaquin. They used every trick Corvain had learned in 8 years of frontier warfare, turning the hunters into the hunted. When they finally reached the village, Joaquin was unconscious from blood loss, and Corvain's shirt was in shreds from a bullet graze across his ribs. "Report, Chief ITSL commanded, as the medicine women worked on Joaquin's wounds. 30 mercenaries under Colonel Hawthorne," Corvain said tersely. "They're being paid to clear Apache lands, probably by mining interests or railroad companies. They'll hit us within 2 days, and when they come, they won't leave survivors." The debate that followed was fierce. Some wanted to flee deeper into the mountains. Others called for a desperate last stand. A few suggested trying to negotiate. "There's another option," Corvain said finally, "but you're not going to like it. Speak." Chief Itzel ordered. "I surrender myself to Hawthorne. He wants me more than he wants your Landime, the deserter who cost him a promotion and made him look bad in front of his superiors. Maybe I can buy you time to escape." The uproar was immediate and angry. Even the wounded Joaquin struggled too. "Sit up and protest." "That's not leadership," he gasped. "It's suicide." "Maybe," Corvain admitted. "But it's the only chance your people have." Ayanna stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "The 5th trial isn't over yet. Both men have shown courage, but only one has shown wisdom." She turned to address the council. "I vote for the man who would sacrifice himself for people who aren't even his own blood." Chief Itzel nodded slowly. "The 5th trial is complete. Corvain has proven himself the better leader." She faced him with eyes like flint. "Now prove you can keep our people alive." The 6th trial began with betrayal. Corvain woke to find himself bound hand and foot, surrounded by a faction of tribal warriors led by Joaquin, who, despite his wounds, had managed to rally the more militant women to his cause. "I'm sorry it comes to this," Joaquin said, his voice tight with pain and determination. "But I won't let you sacrifice our honor for a temporary peace. We are Apache. Fight." Ayanna knelt beside Corvain, her knife cutting his bonds even as other women pointed arrows at her heart. "This ends now," she declared. "We've lost too much already to tear ourselves apart from within." "Stand aside, cousin," Joaquin warned. "This white man has bewitched you with soft words and false promises. When the soldiers come, his courage will crumble like autumn leaves." "Then let him prove otherwise," Chief Itzel said, stepping from the shadows with 3 of the tribe's eldest women. "The 6th trial begins now, not with courage or skill, but with the test that matters most. Will you choose love or war, Corvain?" "Two spirits?" The name stopped him cold. "Two spirits," the Apache designation for one who walked between worlds, belonging fully to neither, but bridging both. His mother had called him that as a child, before the soldiers came and took her away. "You know my true name," he said quietly. "Your mother sang it in the spirit caves before she died," Chief Itzel replied. "Jana brought me dreams of you 3 moons past. The spirits have been preparing us for your arrival." The revelation sent ripples through the gathered warriors. Even Joaquin looked shaken. Apache dreams were not dismissed lightly. They were messages from the ancestors, glimpses of the path the living should follow. "Dreams can lie," Joaquin said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Can they?" Her hand finding his. "I dreamed of a man with storm-colored eyes who would come to us broken and bleeding, carrying the sins of his fathers, but also their strength. I dreamed he would face 7 trials, and in the 7th, choose love over vengeance." "Pretty words," scoffed Tohono, one of Joaquin's supporters. "But when the soldiers come with fire and bullets, will your dream man fight or flee?" The answer came sooner than expected. A scout came running into camp, her horse lathered with sweat and her face grim with news. Soldiers approached from the south, she gasped. Many soldiers with long guns and anger in their hearts. They will be here before the sun touches the western peaks. Chaos erupted. Women scattered to gather weapons and children, while warriors prepared for a battle they couldn't hope to win. In the confusion, Corvain found himself momentarily free. He could have run then, should have, perhaps. Instead, he climbed to the highest point in the village and began to sing, not in English, or even in the Apache tongue he'd learned from his mother, but in the ancient language of the spirits, words that came from somewhere deeper than memory. One by one, the panicked voices stilled. Something in that wordless song called to the deepest part of the Apache soul. The part that remembered when the world was young, and all peoples were one tribe under the endless sky. When the song ended, Corvain found the entire village gathered. Below him, even Joaquin and his rebels. In the distance, dust clouds marked the approach of their enemies. "I offer myself to you one final time," Corvain said, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "Not as a warrior or a leader, but as a bridge between worlds. Let me go to them with words instead of weapons. Let me find a path that doesn't end in the death of children. I'll kill you the moment they see you," Ayana protested. "Maybe, but if they do, you'll know I spoke truth about their intentions. And if they don't," he shrugged, "then maybe there's still hope for all of us." Chief Itzel stepped forward. "This is the 6th trial, the test of ultimate sacrifice. Will you walk among your enemies unarmed, trusting in nothing but truth and the strength of your convictions?" Corvain nodded. "I will." "And will you do this knowing that success might mean leaving us forever, while failure will certainly mean your death?" "I will." The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "Then you have passed the 6th trial, but the 7th... She looked toward the approaching dust clouds. "The 7th trial belongs to all of us." Corvain walked down from his perch to where Ayana waited. Without a word, she rose on her toes and kissed him gently at first, then with desperate passion, as if she could pour 10 years of loneliness and a lifetime of love into that single moment. "Come back to me," she whispered against his lips. "I'll find a way," he promised. Then he was walking toward the canyon mouth, unarmed and alone, while behind him the Apache prepared for either peace or war. In the distance, Colonel Hawthorne's mercenaries rode closer, their intentions written in dust and steel against the dying light. The 6th trial was complete. The 7th and final trial was about to begin. Corvain met the mercenary column at the narrow entrance to the canyon, his hands raised and empty, walking steadily toward 30 armed men who had every reason to kill him on sight. Colonel Hawthorne rode at their head, older now, but still carrying himself with the rigid arrogance that had made him infamous on the frontier.
"Oh, well,"
Hawthorne called out, raising his hand to halt the column. "Warvin Ashworth, the deserter himself, saved me the trouble of hunting you down." Colonel Corvain replied evenly. "Still taking money to kill women and children, I see." Hawthorne's face darkened. "Still got that smart mouth that got you in trouble. Boys, string him up. Will you use his body to send a message to those Apache bitches?" Wait. The voice belonged to a man Corvain didn't recognize, well-dressed, soft-looking, clearly the money behind this operation. "Let's hear what he has to say first. Might be useful information in it." "Mr. Carrington hired me to clear this valley of hostiles," Hawthorne said through gritted teeth. "Not to chat with traitors. Carrington." The name clicked into place. Railroad money, with a reputation for buying politicians and hiring killers to get what he wanted. Corvain filed the information away and focused on staying alive long enough to use it. "I've got a proposition," he said, directing his words to Carrington rather than Hawthorne. "Something that might save you time, money, and unnecessary bloodshed." "Listening," Carrington said, ignoring Hawthorne's glare. "The Apache will sell you the mineral rights to their land for the right price. They'll even relocate voluntarily if you make it worth their while. No need for a massacre that might bring federal investigators." It was a desperate lie, but told with enough conviction that Carrington leaned forward in his saddle. "What makes you think they'd negotiate?" "Because they're not fools. They know they can't fight the whole U.S. government indefinitely. They want assurance that their children will have a future somewhere safe." "Interesting." Carrington stroked his beard thoughtfully. "And you're authorized to speak for them?" "I'm authorized to bring their answer to your terms." "What exactly are you offering?" For the next hour they haggled like horse traders while the sun sank toward the western peaks. Carrington wanted mining rights to the silver veins that honeycombed the mountains. In exchange, he offered relocation to a reservation in Arizona, decent land with water rights, enough money to start over. It wasn't a perfect deal, but it was survival. More than that, It was a chance for the Apache to choose their own destiny rather than have it forced upon them at gunpoint. "I'll need to present this to their council," Corvain said finally. "Give me until sunrise to bring you an answer." "Sunrise," Carrington agreed. "But if they refuse, or if this is some kind of trick, ... Then you do what you came here to do," Corvain finished. "But at least give peace a chance first." He turned and walked back toward the canyon, every step expecting a bullet between his shoulders. But Carrington's greed was stronger than Hawthorne's. Hatred, at least for now. The real negotiation began when he reached the village. Half the tribe wanted to reject the offer outright, preferring to die as warriors rather than live as refugees. Others saw the wisdom in choosing.